Kiddushin, Daf Nun Gimel on the base, the purpose of pleasure, xenvani, כשולחני, or כבעל הבית. You see in this Gemara how when we learn a piece of Gemara thoroughly, you get a lot of bekias as well. You get not only depth of knowledge on the piece that you're looking at, but you also get a lot of breadth. In today's piece, we need to understand a Mishnah in Bava Metzia, we need to understand a Mishnah in Me'ilah, and we'll understand a Gemara in Brochus. That's 3 Masechtas we're going to touch, just in understand these few lines of Gemara. And it is that like that when you learn something in depth. And in so doing and understanding what is a relatively straightforward piece of Gemara that we have today, we've had some difficult pieces over the last few days. Now, today's is a little easier. In so doing, through a question that I asked myself as I learned it, which I'll share with you, what I came to was a clearer understanding of the Torah's philosophy of pleasure. How does the Torah view pleasure? What is the role of pleasure in our lives? And of course, that's a complex and a very broad concept, but at least one angle, one facet of that idea we learn from this piece of Gemara. To understand our Gemara, we need to understand the Mishnah in Bava Metzia, and we need to understand the Mishnah in Me'ilah. The Mishnah in Bava Metzia is the following: Hamafkid ma'ota etzel shulchani. If you put some money for safekeeping with a banker, you don't fill in a deposit slip and do it all. You just go to him and you give him a suitcase full of cash. Im tsururim, if they're packaged, if the money you give is all packaged, lo yishtamesh bahem, then he shouldn't use it. He can't invest the money. He can't lend the money. He can't bank with the money. If you've packaged the money, then it's a commodity. It's not currency. You've given him a package to look after. And so he doesn't have the din of a sho'el, he doesn't have the din of a borrower. So if he loses the money, he's not responsible for it because he's just looking after it, he's not investing it. But mutarin, if you give him the money just so not nicely packaged, then yishtamesh bahen, then he's a banker, he's allowed to use the money. That's what you're depositing the money for. He can invest the money, he can lend the money, and of course there's risk in that. And therefore, if he loses the money, he's got to replace the money. Etzel balabayit, but if you go to an ordinary person who's not a banker, bein surin uvein mutarin lo yishtamesh bahen, whether the money is packaged or it's just loose, you can't do it. So if you give me some money to look after, it makes a difference. I can't use the money and say to you when you come back for the money, sorry, I've actually put it on deposit at the bank, it'll be available in a week's time. I can't do that. You give me money to look after, when you come for it, I've got to give you the money as you gave it to me. It's a commodity, it's not currency. I'm not a banker. If I'm a trader, I'm a shopkeeper, I trade in commodities, I'm not a banker, do I have the din of a balabait or the din of a shulchani? Am I treated as a banker? Because I use money. Money is part of my business. So if you give me money, I'm assuming you've given me this money to finance my trade. Or must I assume that you've given me the money just to look after as is? So there's a machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. That's the Mishnah in Bava Metzia. The Mishnah in Me'ilah takes it a step further and says, therefore, im hotzi ma'al. If you gave them package to the banker, so he's got to know this was not given to me to spend. It was not given to me to invest. It was given to me just to take care of. But imagine that it's hekdesh money. So it's the treasurer of the Beis HaMikdash comes to the banker and says, can you take care? I've got $1 million here in the suitcase. Can you take care of it for me? If he goes and invests it, now what's he done? Apart from all the other issues, there's Me'ilah. Me'ilah means you're using money that belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, to Hashem, you're using it for regular use. So he's over Me'ilah. He wasn't supposed to do that. But im mutarin, if the money is given to him loose, then yishtamesh by him, he's allowed to invest it. So he gives me $1 million from the Beis HaMikdash and it's loose. And then he comes and he wants the money back or whatever. I said, the money, I'm using the money. I'm not moil. I'm allowed to use it. It was given to me loose. But what about the gizbar? He is moil. So whatever you do, if you take Beis HaMikdash money out and you just invest it in the open market, somebody's moil, somebody's done me'ilah. The only question is, was it the responsibility of the gizbar, of the treasurer, to package the money in such a way that the banker wouldn't use it for anything else? Or is it the banker's responsibility to know that? And our Mishnah brings the same idea based on our Mishnah in yesterday's Daf, in Daf Nun Bes Amud Beis, that I'm a hekdesh b'chelko ben kodshi kadoshim ben kodshim kalim ena mekudeshin. If a man uses his portion of hekdesh, so he might be an owner who's entitled to a certain part of the korban. And he uses that piece of korban to be mekadesh a woman, to betroth the wife. Or it might be the kohen who's got the chazeh and the shok, he's got various parts of the korban, and he uses that to betroth his wife. Eina mekudeshet, because that money isn't his. You can't be mekadesh a woman with money that doesn't belong to you. The money, the hekdesh, belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. So it's all dealing with this idea of the ownership belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara then goes into a whole question of, okay, so the woman's not mekudeshet, but is the money now chol? Has the money left the ownership of the Beis HaMikdash, and there's an issue of me'ilah? No, says the Gemara, if the woman's not mekudeshet, clearly the money still belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. The Kohen comes along and he uses his korban to be mekadesh a woman. The woman is not mekudeshet, and the meat still belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. That the Kohen's allowed to eat the korban is shulchan gavoa kazach. Our Gemara says Hashem invites the Kohen to his table, so to say, this is my food. You come and partake of it. You may join it, but it doesn't belong to you. Then the Gemara says, what happens if it goes into sale? If somebody takes a piece of hekdesh and he puts it into the open market? And Rabbi Meir says, Af b'mecha lo kana. That also doesn't work. The kinyan doesn't work. You can't take something which isn't yours and use it in the market. It doesn't work. It remains in the ownership of hekdesh. And then the Gemara asks on Rabbi Meir from this piece that we've had in Me'ilah Daf Kaf Aleph, based on the Gemara in the Mishnah Bava Metzia Daf Mem Gimel. The Gemara brings that in. The question that I had, which led me to the understanding that I want to share with you, is, so let's say the balabait, for example. So I'm an ordinary guy. The gizbar brings me a bunch of money. Whether it's packaged or it's not, I'm not supposed to use it because I'm not a trader and I'm not a banker. I'm just an ordinary rabbi. If you're bringing me money, you're not bringing me money to do business with the money. You're giving me money to put it away and take care of it while you're off on vacation. And then I've got to leave it. But I don't. There's an amazing opportunity. Ricky comes to me and says, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. Give me that $1 million that the Beis HaMikdash gave you, that the Gizbar gave, or that the person, the individual gave you. Put it into this business. It's going to double up in a month. You can't miss this opportunity. So I trust Ricky and I give him the $1 million. I won't tell you what happens afterwards, but anyway, at this point I give the $1 million. So now the Gizbar comes along and he says, "Where's the $1 million?" I said, "I'll have it back very soon. In fact, I'll have $2 million. I've given it to Ricky for business." He says, "But this is hekdesh. How could you do that?" So what do you think I would then say to him? "Why didn't you tell me it was hekdesh?" What is the Gizbar going to answer? "I didn't have to tell you it was hekdesh. You had no right to use it in any event." So that's the tension here. And what I discover from that is when you use something that you're entitled to have, but not to use, that's also geneva. So if I give you something to look after, you're a shomer chinam. I say, look after my watch while I go swimming. I'm going to the beach, look after my watch. And you put the watch on and you wear it. That's geneva. It wasn't given to you for that. It was given to you just to take care of. And when you use something, so one kind of geneva is I take something which belongs to you and I keep it. But this is also geneva, to take a usage that belongs to you. Remember, we had that wonderful ritvo a few days ago about when you do a kinyan in a piece of property or in a business that produces fruit, that produces profit, or you do a kinyan in a computer or an axe. Are you doing a kinyan in the guf, in the actual body of the thing, or are you doing a kinyan in the usage of the thing? To steal usage is also theft. If I haven't given you the right to use my thing, I've given you the right to have it in your possession, but not to use it. And if you use it, that's geneva, that's theft. You've stolen a usage that doesn't belong to you. We see from all of these Gemaras that usage is also an object of ownership. We sometimes think it's not. I'm using the watch. The watch is still the same. I'm not damaging the watch in any way. I'll give you the watch exactly as it was. I just used it for a while. I went to see my banker and I went with your Rolex so that my banker would be impressed. But it didn't damage your Rolex. You had no right to wear I didn't give you that right. I didn't give you the right to usage. Now, where that's really important is in a different context altogether. Tanu Rabban, and the Gemara says in Brachos Daf Lamed Hey, Asur lo la'adam sheyeneh min ha'olam hazeh b'lo bracha v'chol ha'neheh min ha'olam hazeh b'lo bracha ma'al. If you have pleasure from this world without a bracha, that is me'ilah. You've been mo'il. Why? Why is that me'ilah? The Gemara says, so what do? You need to learn hilchos brachos so that you don't do such a thing. Why is that me'ilah? That's me'ila because that's not that's not the usage I was given of the world. It's true. V'ha'aretz natan livnei adam. Hashem gave me the planet. But what did he give me the planet for? Here's the hekdesh. What did Hashem give me the planet for? כן, אבל בשביל מה הקדוש ברוך הוא נתן לנו את העולם? לעשות מה עם העולם? לשומרה ולעבדה, understand? And what does Rashi say over there? What does Chazal say about l'shomra ולעבדה? What is the avodah? He didn't give us the world to consume. And he didn't even give us the world to preserve. He gave us the world for avodah, to serve him with the world, like our lulav and esrog that we're using at the moment. The lulav and esrog was not given to us to consume. The lulav and esrog was given to us as an instrument of avodah. The world is given to us as an instrument of avodah. What is the avodah? Bracha. The reason Hashem gives us a glass of wine is not so that we should enjoy the wine. He gives us the glass of wine so that we should make a bracha. How do you make a bracha? You can't make a bracha if you haven't enjoyed the wine, so you're allowed to enjoy the wine. That's your means of making a bracha. You think you make a bracha so that you can drink the wine. No. You drink the wine so that you can make a bracha. So to mumble the bracha, what's that about? The whole thing is the bracha. The wine is just the means of being able to make a bracha. But the whole thing is the bracha. And it's the same with Birkas HaMitzvahs. The Vilna Gaon says it's the same with Birkas HaMitzvahs. The whole thing is the bracha. You do the mitzvah so that you can make a Birkat HaMitzvah. You're doing lulav and esrog so that you can say, Asher kiddushonu b'mitzvasav v'tzivonu al netilas lulav. That's the whole thing. But to do that, you've got to use the lulav, you've got to use the mitzvah. And we have this beautiful Rabbeinu Bechaya on Va'aseli matamim kasher ahavti va'avi ali va'ochela va'ochela ba'avut va'arechecha nafshi b'terem amut. When Yitzchak says to Yaakov, thinking it's Esav, bring me a delicious meal so that I can give you a bracha. What's a delicious meal? Yitzchak needs to have a good meal. He needs a steak. And Rabbeinu Bechaya describes so beautifully. You should learn through the Rabbeinu Bechaya. I've quoted the full one inside. A bracha comes from the nefesh. It comes from inside you. And you can only give a bracha if you really are feeling good inside. It's got to come from a good place, from a happy place. And he says it's the same with nevuah, that nevuah comes when you're listening to music. You need music for nevuah. It's not that there's a spiritual and there's a physical world. They're connected. The physical pleasure that we get triggers an internal pleasure that then becomes the initiator of the sense of bracha. So if you're going to make a bracha for Hashem, it's not a transaction. You're going to make a bracha to Hashem, it's not a ritual. If you make a bracha to Hashem, it's going to come from inside your heart. It's going to come from a place of gladness, from a place of joy. So you've got to enjoy the world first. And the way you make a bracha on a glass of wine is different from the way you make a bracha on an apple, is different from the way you make a bracha on a leaf of lettuce, is different from the way you make a bracha on a fragrance, is different from the way you make a bracha on light and day and darkness and light, and the way you make a bracha of the clothes that you put on in the morning, and the way you make a bracha for waking up in the morning. Each one of these are nuanced. They come from a different inner place. You're thanking Hashem from a different inner place. Yitzchak wants to bless Yaakov from a place of material satisfaction and happiness so that he can give him a real bracha of material happiness. And the Rabbeinu Bechai goes on and says, that's why we do Nisuch HaMayim on Sukkot, because Hashem wants to give us rain on Sukkot. So we do a mitzvah for Hashem with water. And so with all the mitzvahs, Hashem asks us to use the objects that He wants to bless us with in the mitzvah. And so it is in the physical things that we do. We bless Hashem with the gladness that comes from the very thing for which we're blessing Hashem. That's what it is. But what happens if we now eat the apple without the bracha? We have the glass of wine without the bracha. Or we make a bracha chatufa, as it's called in halacha. It's just a hurried bracha without any feeling, without any sense. What have you done then? Not only is it me'ila, but Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa says on the next page in brachas, Ki'ilu gozel la'kadosh baruch hu. You're stealing from Hashem. Isn't that me'ila? No. Me'ila is a different thing. Me'ila is not theft. Me'ila is using something for a purpose for which it wasn't given to you. And now you're using the world to drink, to eat. You're using the world for consumption. The world wasn't given to you for consumption. Imagine if the whole world operated that way. If we understood the world wasn't given to us for consumption, you wouldn't need environmentalists. It would be obvious you've got to take care of the world. It wasn't given to us to consume. It was given us to praise Hashem with. And we've got to treat the world in that way, that we praise Hashem. It's an object of mitzvah. Eretz Yisrael is an object of mitzvah. We wouldn't throw our garbage and our litter on the street if we understood that Eretz Yisrael was an instrument of mitzvah. It's not given us just to live in. It's given us as a tool by which to praise Hashem every single day, to praise Hashem for the fact that we're living here and that we have this access. But there's something else. Ki'ilu gozel HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Rashi. What are you stealing from Hashem? Not the glass of wine. That's me'ilah. Not the apple. That's me'ilah. Et birchato. The bracha belongs to Hashem. And you've stolen the opportunity of the Ribbono Shel Olam to get your bracha. You owe him a bracha. And you've taken that debt, that indebtedness you've taken away from him. You haven't given him that which you owe him. So we see from this Gemara, which is a real technical Gemara about depositing some money with a man, and is it me'ilah or isn't it me'ilah? Is he allowed to use it or isn't he allowed to use it? Coming to the very question of why did we not have to tell him? We didn't have to tell him it was hekdesh because he had no right to use it for that. We don't have the right to use the world for things it wasn't given us to use it for. And the world was given to us for brochas, to praise Hashem, to attribute the world to Hashem, to appreciate Hashem, to get excited by Hashem and His creation. And simply to consume instead of use the world as an instrument of avodah is an act not only of me'ilah but also of gezela, that we're misusing the world, we're using something that is meant for kedusha, we're using for everyday means, and we're stealing from the Ribbono Shel Olam the bracha that belongs to Him.